Hello, welcome back to On Air with Dr. Pete. I'm your host, Dr. Pete Economo. I'm thrilled again to be here with you today with another amazing guest. As you know, we would like to bring you some amazing people to just share their wisdom and expertise. I like to say I am an expert in nothing, and so to bring the experts on is really great. So I'm looking forward to share another incredible guest with you. This is a husband, world traveler, actor, speaker, teacher, lifelong learner, suicide prevention activist. He really believes in living a life you love, which I really like that. So he works with energy as a life activation healer, certified healer, and a ritual master. So he's the creator. Andy Grant is the creator of Real Men Feel. And today we're going to discuss why and how to get men to open up about their feelings and to communicate. Andy, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure to be here.
So how would you describe yourself? Like this was, what I put to, what's your elevator pitch for people?
Yeah, the quickest thing, I'm an author, coach, and healer.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what does that mean? Or healing of what? And then I just keep it short to encourage a conversation and a question. But
yeah, author, coach, and healer. So I think let's talk about healer then. Let's dive right into that. So how do you heal and where does that come from?
Well, it comes from source, God, the universe, where it is. All healing is self-healing.
Yes.
And healers are just people that help facilitate that.
Yes.
So sometimes I'm truly directing energy to a client. Mm-hmm. Sometimes energy is coming through me and I'm like a straw and giving energy. Most people, at least by now, are familiar with Reiki.
Yes.
It's kind of the most, and even before that, chiropractic was considered like crazy fringe stuff not long ago. And now that's just everywhere and accepted. But, everything is energy.
Yeah.
We are all doing energy work every day with our eyes, taking in rays and visible spectrums and interpret them. And we hear things that aren't there. Oh, my God. Well, that's hearing, right?
Yeah.
Wi-Fi. It's magic in the air. and it was all connected or not connected, depending on how you use it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we remember the dial-up too. So,
I'm glad that sound's gone of my life.
we've come a long way. I love this stuff, which I said to you before we started recording. I know that a lot of people I work with are, and I hate to start with this right away, but the skeptics. I feel like, someone's tuning in and being like, Reiki, tune off. Let me just switch and go to the next podcast episode. So
I was the same way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were you?
Everything I do on a daily basis is something I made fun of for years. But then I tried it.
Yeah.
So my go-to line around energy work is much better experienced than explained.
Oh, I like that.
And are you willing to have an experience?
Yeah.
And then we put something on the schedule. Yeah. I do Akashic record readings. I can read people's energies, and then I also have the healings. So usually a 10-minute experience makes people go like, whoa. Yeah. That's all I'm after. Like something else is here. Well, I used to think I was just this meat suit. I was a random collection of chemicals.
Yeah.
I was wrong, and I'm glad to be wrong about that.
Yeah.
But we are immortal spirits.
Yes.
Right. We're here having an experience, good, bad, and different. But we will continue. We existed before here. We'll exist after it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think even that, like immortal spirits, I get that, and I can totally mess with it. Like, I love this stuff. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, well, what is that? What's an immortal spirit? And how do we know?
Well, I don't recommend my path.
Yeah, let's hear your path.
My path involved being a very depressed and suicidal young person.
Okay.
Multiple attempts on my life, my teens and 20s.
Yeah.
And it took me all that to realize, maybe I'm supposed to be here. Like maybe there is a point. Maybe I'm more than this. And, the first time I had sort of an out-of-body experience or hearing another voice, a presence, I was used to the critic. Yeah. You suck. Everything sucks. You can't do anything right. You should kill yourself. Yeah. I knew that voice. One point at 19 years old, I had made another attempt on my life using a means that had already not worked. Yeah. So I'm now repeating things that don't work. So it finally dawns on me, all right, I don't think you really want to die. Like something else is going on here. But I was beating myself up. Can't live, can't die right. What the hell am I doing? And for the first time, I felt this other, softer voice than the critic saying, if you share your story, it'll all be worth it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, what? And until that point, I had been in many hospitals, seen lots of doctors, been on lots of meds. I never shared. I never told them how I really felt. I didn't think I was worth saving. So I kept everything to myself. Mm-hmm. So that share your story, to me, it meant, so for the first time, I went into a hospital willingly. I opened myself up. I was willing to be helped. And that's what really started my healing.
That's really so opening up to professionals. What about like in your personal life? I mean, was that a part of it?
Eventually,
Yeah.
um, so I was molested as a child. At the same
Mm.
time, my parents were getting divorced. So at age 5, I'm deciding
Wow.
the world's not safe.
Yeah.
I can't trust men.
Yeah.
And I thought I was an only child. It was me and my mom. And I
Mm.
thought if I tell someone what's happening, I'll be in trouble and I'll
That's
be the
right.
next man kicked out of the house.
Yeah.
So I shut it all down. My dad often talked about that high school were the best years in your life.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why would anyone live beyond that? Things are pretty stinky
Uh,
right now at age 6 and 7. I'll try to get to 18 and then I'm
right.
out of here.
Okay.
And I tried far before I was 18. But
Okay.
also, it wasn't until I was an adult, I'm in my 30s, I finally realized my dad experienced high school and then fatherhood. He was
Mm.
21 years old when I was born.
Okay.
So all he had was, high school was the peak of his life.
Right.
So I'm glad to be wrong about things I thought were right.
Yeah.
Like high school was not the peak of my life.
Yeah.
I can trust men, right? The
Mm-hmm.
world is safe. The universe does support all of us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this would be like a cosmic joke.
Yeah.
The universe isn't throwing banana peels in front of us to like, oh, I want to do this in my life. Whoops, I can't. Haha. It's not like that. But I used to believe it was.
Yeah. So how does that mix with, say, psychology? So there's a lot of I'm a psychologist, a lot of mental health practitioners listening, and so I mean I see the integration of it, but so this really, so thanks for sharing that. Like these really deep traumatic experiences, and you hear that a lot, right? These deep experiences that transform people into where you're at to like help others. So do you see how this interacts? Like, do you work with the psychologists or mental health folks, or?
It's neat. A few times I've had psychologists refer people to me who
Yeah.
thought they were going crazy, but were having a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
And I was like, a lot of people like spend a lot of money to have the experience you're having on your own. Like it's okay. And I tell you're not crazy. We walk through, we do some exercises, we learn about boundaries and how to feel and control your own energy.
Yeah.
Because one of the first things around energy work that was ever told to me was that someone told me, Andy, all this suicidal thoughts, all this energy, it's not even yours.
Yes.
And what does that mean? What
Yes.
do I do with that?
Yes.
And again, I learned all this sort of ancestral trauma can be passed on.
For sure.
Yeah. So my grandfather and my great grandmother both died by suicide.
Okay.
So it's literally in my genes.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
But science and spirituality, there's science. I always find that science is proving spirituality right more than the other way around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The life activation you mentioned, the life activation healing I have, it brings more light into the physical body.
Yes.
It lights up your spiritual DNA. We have physical DNA and spiritual DNA.
Yeah.
When science looks at DNA, the stuff they can't explain, they call it junk DNA.
Yeah.
There's no junk in us.
Yes.
Everything has a point and a purpose. It can be turned on, can be turned off, can be used to our benefit, can be used to our neglect.
Right.
But nothing is junk.
So when you say like a lot of people could pay a lot for that spiritual awakening, that was curious to me because I'm wondering, are there adjunct to some of the work that you'll do? Like, so right now I'm with, some of the psychedelics and the research there that's now coming back. Is that part of the journey as well?
It's part of my personal journey.
Okay.
They're no longer things that I recommend to people.
Right.
But I've done a lot of magic mushrooms just as a teenager, just for fun, and I loved it because it just made me laugh. So I get how that helps depression.
Yeah.
Because the world is just funny when I'm on mushrooms.
Yeah.
But I've done ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And I had the shaman that led the ceremonies said in their 15 years of leading ceremonies, I was the best first time experience he'd ever seen.
Wow.
So I was like, well, I don't need to do this again,
Right.
and I went out on top. And so that's what I mean. But I find it is, I don't want to say better. To me, it's more potent to realize you can have that experience without a substance.
Yeah. Oh, no,
right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done a lot of holotropic breath work as well.
Okay.
And have had trippy, crazy, amazing experiences just from oxygen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, just to say, we're not recommending anything by any means. Do your research and just for listeners, like there's a lot of empirical research, that has shown the impact on really rewiring trauma, and so I think it makes sense to some of your background as to why that was there.
Yeah.
So how would you say that differs then? So like the breathing you just said, like how does that differ from a traditional psychedelic or just the work you do? How is it unique or different to other energy work?
The work I do today comes from the modern mystery school. It's a
Okay.
lineage that goes back over 3,500 years to King Solomon from the
Wow.
Bible, the son of David, slayer of Goliath, right? So
Wow.
it's the famous King Solomon's temple. For 40 years, he brought people together to teach
Yeah.
each other uh, rituals and shamanism and healing. And what worked for everybody, what could be learned by everybody, became the foundation of the healings in the mystery school.
Wow.
You can't read a book, you can't get a
Right.
video, everything's still passed down mouth to ear of a student.
Yes.
The most potent work is only done in person. Um, Energy is everywhere. You can blast it, but
Yeah.
to be meticulous and direct, I need to be in front of a person doing that activation on them.
Yeah.
So nothing is needed. I've had people, I have a healing called the Spark of Life, which is the one remote thing I offer. And someone wrote to me like, "How many wormholes did you send me through?" I'm like, "I didn't, I just brought you energy and you wrote it where you want to." But so they seem to have a bit of a psychedelic experience receiving that. But it's different for everyone. But it's all about, again, healing yourself, letting our inner wisdom, our inner healers, letting our true God self out and be experienced.
Nice. That I mean, that's just so beautiful. And I hope listeners kind of really tap into this. And one of the things you said at the beginning of this is like the openness. You have to be open for these experiences, and so you don't have to go do ayahuasca or anything like that. You just like you said, this thing. I like that you also talk about the virtual, because during COVID, I was really thinking a lot about that, because it is really hands on your work. Like I do think it's hard to do that virtually, and I don't know. I do think if there's a way of figuring that out, it's probably part of the future of this. What do you think?
I don't know, because it's like, can you have virtual wisdom teeth removal?
Right.
Like some things just have to be physical, but you could have a telehealth appointment, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So there are things I can do remotely anywhere in the world, and there are just the best things are in person.
Yeah.
And when people reach out to me, this isn't just something I know. Like it's from the mystery school. So when someone reaches out, "Hey, I heard you on the show. I want you. What is this life activation thing?" I'll help them find someone near them.
Yeah, that's great.
You're welcome to fly to me in Massachusetts, and we'll get together. But there are people all around the world that have these healings in their pocket.
I love, You also brought up the inner critic. That's from behaviorism, and so that was part of your journey, was the inner critic. And so I'm thinking about self-doubt, and people struggle with that. They limit their beliefs. So what are some practical techniques that maybe help clients through that self-doubt or the inner critic?
One thing I found that helped me the most, the first time I ever worked with a coach and identified the critic, and I just describe it. So my inner critic was Danny DeVito as the Penguin in one of the older Batman movies. And just miserable and just talking like that. I'm like, oh my God. So giving that made me laugh. I could laugh. I go, what a silly looking thing I'm listening to.
Yeah.
So use all your senses, describe it, dive into it.
Yeah.
If we hear it, go, and every time we touch something that's so-called negative and retreat, it gives it more power. It's going to stay there. So I would write down, what is my critic telling me? And I'd be able to laugh at it. Well, this is silly. That's stupid. This isn't going to help me. And that took away its power. So engage in it, because normally we just listen to it, which isn't engagement. We just follow the orders of our critic.
Yeah.
But if we engage, take away the power, realize it's just this wounded aspect of something trying to keep us safe, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you gave me that visual back of Danny DeVito, because now I only see him as Jersey Mike's person.
Oh yeah, and that doesn't trigger me, so it's good.
Exactly. So you talked about say some of the virtual healing stuff, and the person says all these multiple wormholes. Maybe would you be able to share, obviously without identifying, a real life example of someone that experienced profound change through this type of energy work?
Sure. A few months ago, I'm at a metaphysical event at a booth. Someone I knew from high school that I hadn't seen since high school walks up, was shocked to find me there. And again, because I made fun of all these things. This is not what I was known for doing.
Yeah.
So I reconnect, and she had recently, not even recently, 8 months prior, had injured her back in some sort of a fall.
Yeah.
And it was bad enough that people said, you won't walk normally again. You'll be in pain the rest of your life unless you have back surgery. Mm-hmm. She was sure there was some other way. So I tell her I have this thing called Spark of Life. It's really meant for physical issues.
Okay.
And I said, I'd love to give this to you. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
That night she slept the most deepest sleep she'd had in the 8 months. Yeah. The next day she woke up pain-free. It's been almost 3 months. She has been pain-free ever since. She is
Wow.
my raving testimonial. She raves about it so much, people think she's nuts. No one believes her.
Yeah.
But and again, I don't promise these things. It's just
No.
everyone
Yeah.
feels that energy come in. What it does for you is different.
She
But for
was
her, it
yeah,
took
she was
away the pain.
open. She was
Right.
open, I'm going to say,
Yeah.
right?
You don't need to believe in anything. You just
Yeah.
can be sitting there going, nah, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
You can't resist it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what comes to mind to me when you say that is like, how do you then take care of yourself? I know as a healer, it could also be draining, and you've got great energy. And so what are your daily practices, or how do you take care of yourself
Yeah.
today?
Daily meditation, daily rituals from the modern mystery school. And actually, every program I've gone through is first working on yourself,
Yes.
clearing, healing. And I find, the more I help others, the more joy I feel. So
Yes.
it's not draining anymore.
Right.
Right. When I'm taking the protocol, when I'm taking care of myself. But I have probably a half hour worth of rituals I do daily each morning that I get up.
Nice.
Set the tone and the energy for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And what about for other people? Like, so what are other sort of daily energy practices that anyone can incorporate in their routine? Like, where do you start? I always start with, when I do mindfulness or meditation for people, I'll say brushing your teeth. You do it twice a day, just brush your teeth. Like, you don't have to think about the fight you had with your partner earlier or what you got to do tomorrow. It's a way of just being mindful in the moment. So like, what are some daily things that people can do to integrate this in their life?
Simple thing. Every step you take, foot on the ground. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you with each step. And like that way to build gratitude. And because you might, what am I thankful for?
Right.
What is this about? And ideally, I'm thankful for my legs. I'm able to walk this morning. Maybe I got out of bed without, being in pain. All sorts of things. But for me, one of the earliest, and this was recommended to me dozens of years by therapists, but gratitude journaling.
Yeah.
And just start with that. Just say thank you.
Yeah.
And it just gives you, once you start focusing on things to be grateful for, your brain will find more and more things. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to disappoint my journal. I need to find something to be grateful for.
Yeah. It helps to lower the volume of that inner critic too.
Sure.
That inner critic was a big part of your journey, up to the, 18 in high school.
But I'll even thank that person of, thanks for your input. Pass.
Yeah, people don't understand that that's the thing. I don't want to thank my negative thought. I want to get rid of them.
Yeah. No, like all my negativity, all my pessimism, all my suicide attempts brought me to today.
Yeah.
And I love me today.
Yeah.
So I can't eliminate something from the past, right?
Right. We say the thief of the past and the thief of the future. So just really being where you are. Yeah. It's so hard for people.
Yeah. And for mindset, to many people, especially men, they would rather be right than be happy.
Yes.
Once I was willing to be wrong about my thoughts and beliefs, that opened the door. That's the opening.
So talk about that. So real men feel. So talk about that.
Real men feel. Yeah. And that, by real, it was kind of tongue in cheek and like real men are lumberjacks, real men don't eat quiche, all this sort of things. But also real, meaning authentic.
Yes.
Humans that are themselves, men who realize they're human beings.
Yeah.
Men who realize, emotions aren't for women, and I'm allowed to be angry, hungry, and horny.
Yes.
Like men are capable of more than that.
That's right.
And to live a meaningful and fulfilling life, men need to feel.
Yes.
Right. So that's what it's all about. But again, openness. I've met guys in their 80s still upset because their dad had never said I love you to them.
Yeah.
I mean, we are ruining generations of men by passing on this sense of stoic falseness that I can do everything myself, don't need anybody's help, asking for help is weakness. And I say the opposite. Often the bravest thing you can ever do is ask for help.
It's way more difficult to be vulnerable than it is to be stoic.
In the moment, perhaps.
Yeah.
Long term, it gets harder and harder because it's.
Oh, that's what I meant to say. Actually, it's easier to be stoic than it is to be vulnerable. So I just reversed that. But my point of that was like, but people think as men that you're stronger by being stoic.
Yeah, I always ask guys, who taught you what it means to be a man?
Right.
If they were a miserable bastard, why would you want to continue that?
Right.
Right. Look for happy men openly talking about how they feel.
Yeah.
Perhaps model that. Because again, it's just perhaps be open to something. If you aren't happy with your daily experience, Be open to trying something new.
Yeah. But those aren't, do we have a ton of role models of men that are super emotional and like vulnerable and out there?
More and more, yeah.
Yeah.
And so here's the fine line. You don't need to be super emotional in the sense that, oh, I'm walking down the street crying every day, or every commercial has me in tears. Like it's not that, but being willing to feel what shows up.
Yeah.
Right. I find that I'm living my best life when I can feel whatever shows up in the moment.
Yeah.
All the guys that are just angry and poking and blaming, and there's always an other. They're people that have not allowed themselves to feel for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They haven't done the work. I mean, you said it before. You said every training you've been through, the first thing they do is make you reflect on you and do work on yourself.
Yeah. And I've also been one of, 1 to 10% men in any sort of program I've been through as well. Yeah. So men are out there, they're catching up. But again, to see someone that's in the spotlight, I think an ideal example is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah.
I've seen him be open, and there's no question he's a guy. He's tough. He can fight. He can do all these manly things, but he also can feel, can hurt, can miss his dad after his dad passed, can love his daughters as he gets played in makeup and they mess him up and, those sorts of things to him that dads love to do, but I don't see dads brag about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a gift I'm blessed to be able to be a part of, because a lot of the athletes or executives I work with, to have that space for them just to open up for the first time, to be like, you don't have to be this. I like that you said it: angry, hungry, and horny.
Yeah. And the male competitive, like one of the things I recommend everyone is get in a men's group. Yeah. Because when the first guy breaks the ice and is vulnerable, shares something, our competitive nature, well, if he's going there, I'm going to go there. Like, I could share something even harder than that guy. And like, so again, there's no negative or positive, like everything's good if we use it.
Tap into that competitiveness, 100%. Yeah, make it more constructive. So where do you see this work going? Like, if you think about the future of this in the next 5 or 10 years, where do you see this energy work and this work going?
So chiropractic is really a model I have to see. So I foresee a time where every town, every downtown, or every town has multiple just energy worker, life activation practitioner, healing center, energy work, commonplace.
Yeah, like next to the Starbucks,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, I what do you think about? There is this piece of like healers, like in South America, for example, many healers are just indigenous and there's no fees or, anything like that because it's just part of who they are. So do you fear that could ever get too commercialized?
Well, so I've had shaman train. I never would call myself a shaman because I'm not an indigenous person. So that's one line I observe and it just matters to me.
Right.
But we don't live in an indigenous tribe. We live in a society with an economy.
Right.
There needs to be an exchange of something.
Yeah.
And here we exchange money for service.
Right.
That indigenous shaman is receiving food, water, blessing. There's always an exchange for things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. By no means I mean, even like altruism, I always say like one of the things I'll say is like Mother Teresa even had dark days, or she also needed to get something back, and sometimes just the fact that she was able to like hold somebody or while they cried, or she was benefiting from that.
Yeah. One thing that nobody ever told me growing up that I found is that being of service brings great joy.
Yeah.
And it just like, I remember like the cliches of, be a Boy Scout, help the old lady across the street with groceries. But there's such a deeper level of that. And especially for men, a man going through some rough times, even if you have a friend that shares that they're having suicidal thoughts, just being there, not running away, not going, whoa, 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 I don't want to hear this. Yeah. Your willingness to be in front of another human being while they share some pain can be the most powerful thing you offer them.
Just hold the space. That's what you said earlier. Yeah. I love that. So, Andy, I mean, this is great. I think I could probably talk to you for a lot longer, but where can people find you?
TheAndyGrant.com is the hub of all things me. You find books, online classes, all the healing work I do. There's links to my podcast, Room and Feel, from there. So that's the best place to start.
Great. And they could travel to Massachusetts to see you in person.
Certainly can. But I also, I offer free clarity calls and 15-minute call. If someone's like overwhelmed by like, I'm attracted to your stuff, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Again, starts with a connection.
So theandygrant.com.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks, Andy, so much for being here today. And for listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, please head to our socials. Everything's at officialdrpete.com. Like, follow, and share our podcast wherever you listen. And we will see you next time. Until then, spread a little kindness and stay well.